Hello, everyone. Welcome to another screening series Q&A. My name is Camilla Shofani, and I'm the Senior Manager of Public Programs and Events. For our visually impaired attendees, I'm going to describe myself. I have dark hair, dark eyes, light skin, and I'm wearing a green button-down shirt. I'd like to thank our media sponsors, KCRW and Variety, for helping us bring this to you. I'd also like to thank our moderator for tonight's conversation, Ella Taylor, who will be speaking with Bianca Stigter, director of 3 Minutes, a Lengthening. And before we begin, I'd like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. We recognize the Gabrielino Tongva as the past, present, and future caretakers of the land, water, and cultural resources in the unceded territory of Los Angeles. And with that, I'll give it away to Ella Taylor. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Ella Taylor. I'm the interviewer. I'm a film critic, written for a lot of publications, and I teach in the film school at the University of Southern California. I used to have brown hair, now it's white, and I am wearing a pink top and glasses.
Hello, I am Bianca Stigter. I'm the director of 3 Minutes, a Lengthening, which is my first film. I have blonde hair and I'm wearing a black jacket.
Okay, well, welcome Bianca, and welcome to everybody else who is tuning in to this interview. I wanted to start by distinguishing this extraordinary film from other kinds of documentaries about the Holocaust, which mainly fall into two categories. One is a fairly conventional accounting from the historical evidence, in which the task for the documentarian is to narrow down from an abundance of evidence. And the other, more recently, is the use of animation techniques and lots of snappy graphics. And this documentary is something very different. Instead of going from deduction, you're going from induction and building from a 3-minute sequence of a very small town in Poland in 1938. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose this method?
Yes, well, when I first this footage that was taken in a small town in Poland called Naszelsk in 1938 by a man that had been born there, David Kurtz, but had emigrated to America in the 1880s already with his family, so he went as a child. And in in 1938, he went back to Europe for the first time as a tourist, and they visited all the touristic highlights: London, Paris, Amsterdam, and they made a detour to the town of his birth in Poland, and there he filmed 3 minutes of a bit more, 3.5 minutes, let's say, of images, mostly in color, which is of course very rare for that time, making the images even rarer. And what you see is a very vibrant community with especially all children that want to be filmed. They really look into the camera and they try to move along with it and stay in the frame. So when I, for the first time, saw this footage on the website of the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, I was immediately very taken by it. And when it was over, which came, of course, very quickly, because it's great that we have 3 minutes of this rare material, but still 3 minutes is very short. I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could keep this past in our present for a bit longer to prolong the experience of meeting this part of the past and in a way meeting this people. And then a few weeks later, because I was not really working as a filmmaker then, more as a film critic, the Critics' Choice program of the Rotterdam Film Festival asked me if I wanted to make a video essay. And then I thought, hey, maybe I can do something with this material now. So then I made a short version of, let's say, 25 minutes that was shown in the Rotterdam Film Festival. And then I still had the feeling that I wasn't done. There was still a lot more to investigate and to show and to make the movie longer, even, you know, just to let the material breathe on the screen. Mm-hmm. So I looked for a producer, and then here we are 5 years later with a version that is almost 70 minutes.
And I gather that one of your producers is Steve McQueen, no relation, of course, to the other Steve McQueen, who's a fairly renowned filmmaker himself. How did he get on board for this?
Well, he's my husband, so that was quite that was quite easy to do. When I told him about it and he saw the 25 minutes, he was very interested to work along on it.
Work along, yes. And your narrator is Helena Bonham Carter, yes, who is Jewish on her mother's side, I gather. How did she get on board for this?
I wanted a beautiful voice, but also a voice that could narrate the story, not from an authoritarian point of view, but let's say as a person who just knows a little bit more than us, but who is in a way finding everything out together with the audience. So and that I think she conveys very beautifully.
Yes, you know, in many other kinds of documentaries, we are often shown footage of bodies piled up on carts or mountains of shoes that belong to the victims. And you very much do not use this method. And I'm happy to say that, not because those images are awful. We do need to bear witness to these, but because we've become desensitized, I think, by seeing the same kind of footage over and over. And one of the great things about your film is that you resensitize us to the problem through absence. I mean, at first we see in these 3 minutes, as you say, these children and adults who are astonished by this camera thing and really want to be in it. And they are living their lives without the knowledge that for most of them, their lives are going to end within a couple of years.
Yes, that's of course what puts this kind of joyous and ordinary images, makes them in a way extraordinary. It puts an enormous pressure on the images, and also first when you look at these people, you think they're very close to you. It's almost like the kids are looking you in the eye. At the same time, it's very frustrating because we know what's going to happen to them and they don't, so that there is a ravine between us, and you want to shout at the screen, run, go away, but of course you can't. So they are in that sense trapped in their past, and we are powerless to do anything. So that gives a lot of pressure to images that at first sight look very, you know, nice town, ordinary, nothing really too special. But then this knowledge makes everything very, very different. And the other part, of course, is that you really, what we try to do with the film is to really, it's for me, it's a film against erasure, because that's, of course, what the Nazis intended to do. They erased the whole culture. And here we have a little bit that was not erased, only on film, but still something we can learn about these people and also see them as individuals. The Holocaust often can be, you know, just a number, and it's very hard to imagine something when it becomes an abstraction. And here you see that it happened to individual after individual after individual.
Yes, and we feel trapped along with them precisely because we can't change history. So it becomes very, very personal, which makes it extremely effective. As the film progresses, it turns into a kind of tragic treasure hunt almost, or an archaeological dig. And can you talk about how that went and how difficult it was or how easy it was? Because you're essentially looking, you lucked out in the sense of finding this one survivor who was recognized by his daughter, was it?
Granddaughter.
Yeah, his granddaughter.
That was amazing. Well, because so little is known about this, the people we see, everything you do know feels like a small victory. So you have the feeling, you know, anything that we can know, there's something at stake, to not let this sink into the past and be forgotten about. And for the research, I had the incredible good fortune that Clan Kurtz, the grandson of David Kurtz, the man who shot the movie in 1938, he wrote a book about it called 3 Minutes in Poland, and that contained a lot of research. And as you hear him being interviewed in the film, so that was, of course, fantastic that he was willing to cooperate with me on this project.
Yeah.
Use the information.
And we learned, we learned that there were in fact 7 survivors. Did you get to speak to any of the others? Are they still alive, or are they descendants? Or
I recently I met a few people because the children came to screenings, but for making the movie, I spoke to Mr. Chandler, because of course there's a difference. The other people are not alive now anymore, I think. Even with Mr. Chandler's story, his story of how he actually survived is not in the movie, because I had this wealth of material because of the book, and then I had to decide what to use. And I thought, okay, the film is the focus of my documentary, so I'm going to use the stories that have a link to what you can see. It can be a very small link, but there has to be a visual link. So that became one of the structuring principles of the documentary.
Essentially, what you're engaged in is world building, which is, you know, obviously a well-known basic element of any kind of filmmaking, whether narrative or documentary. But it was a real hard slog to build a world from that. How long did that take you?
Well, the first 25 minutes we had quite quite fast in a month or so. And then it took me another 5 years
Yeah.
to get it right, to do research, to interview Mr. Chandler in Detroit, and to visit Nachelsk and record sound there, and to do additional research with a Polish researcher and some. We tried to find out a lot of things that didn't end up in the movie in the end because it didn't lead to anything. I tried to find a lip reader, for instance, who could read the Yiddish that was spoken probably in the village at that time. And then when we had found one, he said, no, we can't make out what they're saying. So the image is too blurry or too
Yes.
short.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of avenues of research that in the end didn't yield anything. But, precisely because so many things are unknown, everything becomes interesting. So I thought the costumes of the women, the dresses and the patterns. So I made a costume historian from the Rijksmuseum and asked her. Then she put it in her group of historians who all are into costumes from that age, and they all said it's nothing special. So but then we know that at least, we try to identify. There's at a certain moment there's a flower in the window, a red flower. I said, okay, we'll call some botanist or biologist and ask, hey, what is this flower? But no one dared to say, oh, it's for sure this flower, because they all thought it was too vague, blurry image to be able to say something about it. So you also always do a lot of research that in the end doesn't end up in the movie because you don't get an answer.
Yes, for me, one of the most fascinating things about the method of this film, and it's endlessly fascinating for its method, is that you keep re-editing the 3 minutes in order to highlight different aspects of the experience of these people and of their fate. I think that there were so few survivors, from this town. Can you talk a little bit about the different angles and what you were trying to show?
Yeah, for me, there were, let's say, two kind of roads we traveled on with the editing. The one is a kind of, give the information and at what moment and so on, so you can search for details and so on. And the other, also important for me, strand was to find ways to not convey information so much, but just find ways to let it be on the screen without becoming boring or uninteresting, but to find a way to let it breathe and to give the audience the possibility to roam around themselves a little bit. So that was the two elements that we had to find the balance between.
Yes, it's very far from uninteresting. I mean, it really is an extraordinary way to build this world, I think, and to, to complete it in that way. For our budding filmmakers, documentary filmmakers in the audience, was this an expensive project? What was your budget? And,
I don't think it was very expensive because we didn't have to film anything. I went to Detroit, I went to Poland to both only to record sound, because I immediately, when I started, I knew I wanted the focus to be on the material from 1938 and not add any talking heads or the village, town, the way it looks now and so on. So in that sense, it was not a very expensive film.
Yeah. And were you funding it from your own money, or did you?
No, we got some subsidy from the Dutch Film Fund and from the Amsterdam Fund for the art.
I see. Yeah. One of the things about Holocaust survival stories is that they all sound as though they've been made up because they're so extraordinarily fantastical, and yet they're all true. I've seen many Holocaust documentaries and narrative features, and that's the image, you know, you feel as though you're in some kind of horrible fantasy because it's so the atrocities are so extraordinary and the methods of survival. So can you tell us how Maurice Chandler did survive very quickly?
I think there was he survived as a farmhand mostly in the Polish countryside. And he could do that because a Polish woman gave him the birth certificate of a non-Jewish Polish boy that had died. So he could use the identity of that other child to survive.
I see. Yeah. Again, extraordinary.
Yeah, and in Clen's book, that story is told as well.
Mhm.
But I thought I would not include it because my focus is on the movie first and foremost. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, but could not find a place. But it's a fantastic story with also all kind of, as you say, things that make you like, oh my God, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about Glenn's involvement in? I mean, had you read the book before you saw the Holocaust, the 3 minutes of footage, which is on the Holocaust Museum's website?
No, I saw the footage first, and then I immediately ordered the book, and I when I got the green light from the Rotterdam Film Festival, I sent an email to his email address on his website, a long email explaining what I wanted to do and so on. And he emailed me back and was cautiously interested to, but I managed through mailing back and forth to convince him that this was an interesting approach. And then I did a long interviews with him while he was in New York and I was in Amsterdam. Those are the interviews that you still hear in the movie. And then he came over to the screening in Rotterdam, and I did a public interview with him in the Jewish Museum in Amsterdam. And since then, we've been in contact. Well, maybe not daily, but for sure, weekly back and forth with information. And I went to Detroit together with him to interview Mr. Chandler, and we were kind of cooperating a lot.
Yeah, he's a very articulate presence in the movie, and you know, almost a collaborator because he's telling, you know, insofar as the story is verbally told, he's the narrator of the movie. He must be thrilled. I think.
Absolutely, yes. I think he's quite happy with the result.
With how it came out, yes, it really is an extraordinary. It has its emotional impact is really extraordinary, and yet it appears to be very low tech. But
yes.
But it is a restored film. I guess it was restored by the Holocaust Museum.
Yes,
because
when they
about the technology that went into.
That is not my forte so much, but what I can tell you is that Glenn had seen it as a child sometimes as one of the holiday movies of his grandparents. And in the 80s, they were transferred to VHS, video copy.
Yeah.
And when Glenn started looking for it, the original material had deteriorated almost beyond being able to restore again. And then he donated the film to the Holocaust Museum. They said just 1 month later, and it would not be able to restore it anymore, because of course Florida is not a climate that is very friendly to old film. So and they managed to do a fantastic job by restoring it. And for me now, let's say the deterioration of the material that is still visible also tells the story of the film. It shows you also how fragile film material is, and how lucky we are we have that, and also the raw power of recording. It's so amazing that we can have this footage, which we don't have footage from the Middle Ages or from antiquity. We have only footage of the last what is it?
Yes,
something years.
Yes. And we come to really identify with some of the characters that we see on the screen. Visually, I think the girl with the braid is a very striking image. What do we know about her?
Not a lot. We don't know her name, and if you don't know someone's name, it's very difficult to find other information about someone. But here again, also the fact that we know so little names is also a sign of the scale of the Holocaust, because if everyone that could know you was also murdered, no one knows your name. You're frozen. Your image has frozen. Oh, there you are back. We have the same. We have a very famous series of photos taken of one of the first roundups in Amsterdam in February 1941. And you see a lot of men who are made to run or sit on a square in the center of Amsterdam. You see these people, they look very recognizable. But we don't know who they are. We don't know their names, because of course it's now a long time ago, but also almost all the people that could have known their names were also murdered. So that is kind of indication of the scale of the Holocaust for me as well.
And I think, I mean, you're Dutch. I had a friend who was had been a curator of the Amsterdam Jewish Historical Museum. She was my roommate in college, Tirza Levy, and she told me that the Dutch Jewish community was so decimated in the Holocaust that this was in the 1980s, when she said there were 10,000 Jews left in all of Holland, which is an astonishingly low number. Did that factor at all into, I mean, there's of course the very famous story of Anne Frank, but you're engaged in a very different kind of exercise here, which is ordinary people. And there's a scene towards the end of the film where, or maybe it's earlier, where Maurice Chandler is asked if he can identify any of the others, and he identifies one other boy that he went to Hebrew school with, and he said, I don't know what to say about him. He was totally ordinary, which is really the whole point of this film. Is
very, very, that contains so many different and conflicting emotions when you think, how did you know who it is? Yeah, it was just a boy. That that speaks volumes in a way.
Yes.
And for this reason also, towards the end of the movie, I wanted to give a kind of pay our respects or create a kind of memorial to every person that is visible in the film, to make their appearance a kind of portrait. And when I first asked this to the special effects man, he said, okay, and he came back with like 40 portraits. And I said, there are much more people in the film. Yeah, but they were out of focus, or they were too blurry or something. I said, that doesn't, for this purpose, that doesn't matter when it's the maybe the last sign of someone that we have. We have to treat it with respect and show it as a portrait.
Yes, reinforces the point that these people were killed for no reason at all, other than the fact that they were Jewish. There is some scenes in the movie where we're told about anti-Semitic acts that preceded the actual murder by local Poles. Some were helpful, but there was also an enormous amount of brutality, none of which you show in your movie. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think in a way the movie is also a movie about presence and absence, and what can we see and what can we not see, and what should we want to see, or the difference between reading about something and seeing something. And of course, the most in this case is we had this that Glenn found this very long eyewitness report of the actual deportation of the Jewish citizens of Nashelsk.
In the Ringelblum archive.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
So I thought, okay, I do not want to summarize this or take out. I want it to be heard in its entirety. But then what can we show? Well, we don't have images of that happening, although the eyewitness does say that some German soldiers are taking pictures while they are humiliating the Jews. And who knows, maybe some of those pictures are still lying in an attic in Bremen or Hamburg, who knows, but they have not been found. So the only visual connection I had was that it happened on that square. So I thought, okay, well, we'll just zoom in ever so slowly on the square so that you're hearing, and then you are made very aware of the absences that we have, concrete and metaphorically, let's say. So.
And also it gets us to think, got me to think about how history is told in general, because it's usually told in, about kings. When I was in high school in England, it was all Tudors and Stuarts and the fights between them, but there was very little history education from the bottom up, that is from the point of view of ordinary people. And I think this wonderful documentary goes a long way towards correcting our view of history. Was that your intention? Or?
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe implicit, but yeah, for me the biggest drive, let's say, was that you have a part of history in this recording that is a kind of it feels a bit Pompeii-like in a way. That
yes, yeah. Oops,
to get the fact that giving attention to this is working against the erasure of it was for me a very important point.
Yeah, this must have been a very consuming experience for you making this documentary. Does it make you want to make others? Do you have another project in the works, or?
Yes, well, while I was making this film, at the same time I was working on a book about the Second World War in Amsterdam, my home. So that book it's a very, very big book, and it is a kind of guide that tells you area by area, street by street, sometimes even house by house, what actually happened there during the war. So you have a lot of people who, like Anne Frank, were in hiding, but also where were the roundups, where were actually the German headquarters in town, where were during the Dutch hunger winter, where were the kitchens people could go and get food, where did the resistance try to blow something up, that sort of information. And that book is now also being made into a documentary.
That you're making it.
And my Steve McQueen is directing that one. Doing the text. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I mean, that sounds really, really wonderful. And I hope it's a trend that you're setting in documentary filmmaking, because I think that many documentaries, especially when it comes to the Holocaust, tend to be both sensational and too respectful, so that the enormity...
both at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, do you plan in the future to pursue this more, or once that book is
well, I've always think some ideas dictate their form to you. They can only exist in a certain form. And this, I wasn't working as a filmmaker, but this idea would only work as a film.
Yes.
And then I was very happy to be able to make it together with people with more experience than me, like the editor Katerina Wartena, who was very important for this project. So if I have another idea that cannot be, that a film is the most logical, want to do it again, because it was very interesting to do. And for me, I usually write. So for me, it was interesting to see that the way you have to work is not that different from writing something. You just have many more tools to work with, but the basic principles are how to distribute information, how to find the rhythm, and all that sort of thing is not that different.
Ah, that's interesting. I would have thought that it would be very different, in the sense that you have to distill everything down for a movie. When you're writing a book, you can go on forever.
Then it will be a bad book.
Yeah. I have one last question for you, which is that has 3 minutes of lengthening been seen in Poland and Germany, and if so, what the response was?
Yes, it's been seen quite widely from Iceland to Taiwan. So it was for me very good to see that also people who don't have, let's say, a personal connection to this part of history still see the value of this history. So that was very good to see. And we were invited to a film festival in Warsaw. And then I wanted to, if they could also arrange a screening in the town from the film, in Nasielsk. So the Warsaw Festival Dogs Against Gravity, they said, okay. And they arranged it, and it was extraordinary because the film was shown in a cinema that already existed in 1938. And is also, some of the survivors remembered going to the movies and even what films they saw. And I also tried to to smuggle that into my documentary, but in the end that was a bit too drifted too far from the core, so I didn't use it in the end. But and that cinema is, let's say, a few 100 meters from the square that you see in the film, and that was amazing to show it there. The mayor came and all kind of high up
Yeah. And yet,
people, and at the same day. Sorry, the same day before we showed the movie, Glenn and other descendants of Jewish Nashelkers had started to, for years already, clean up the Jewish cemetery. The stones were taken away in the war, but the place is still there, and now they put a kind of memorial gate in front of the cemetery. So that was installed at the same day, and it was a big happening with a lot of descendants of survivors or other Jewish Nashelkers came to the
Wow.
village with Glenn. And then we had the kids from Nashels, the school children who now go to school in the building that was the Jewish school, showed us around in Jewish Nashel, saying, "Oh, this was the house where Mr. Chandler lived, and here was this, and here was the synagogue, which was torn down," and so on. And then, yeah, that was such an amazing feeling, but because a few years ago when I went there still was nothing to see, as is said in the film. There was nothing, and yet the feeling that people would not really, especially children, would not know a lot about the Jewish history of their town, and now they do.
They do, yeah.
So that was kind of very fantastic and amazing.
Sound in general is used in a very inventive way, also by its absence in some of the movie, but there is music in the movie. Can you talk about your choices for that?
Yeah, well, there was, let's say, that for me was also kind of incredible thing that you could do, because the movie itself is, of course, silent. He did not record sound, David heard.
Although we do hear the whirring of the
sound
camera.
of a projector.
Extraordinary, yeah.
Yeah. And then in Glenn's book, one of the survivors, Leslie Glodek, remembered that in the restaurant we see that there was dancing on Saturday night, and he mentioned what's his name, Bert Ambrose and his orchestra. And then on the BBC World Service, and you go look at old radio times from that time that still exists, so you can look that up, and you see, yes, he did perform, and you look at songs from that that he performed, and then you find a song called Chasing Shadows, which is weirdly appropriate for this. And then you can put a music on an image that is not completely sure that it was heard at that time in Nashels, but say for 85% we can be sure that people heard that particular song over there, and you can then bring the sound and image from that time together. That felt to me like some kind of historical magic.
Yes,
and for the rest, yeah.
Carry on, sorry.
Yeah, and then also, yeah, the same with the cantor Kusevitsky that Mr. Chandler remembered coming to Nashels, and we don't know if that was the occasion that he filmed, but Mr. Chandler thinks so. So that could have been that day. And you see all the people go into the synagogue, and you see them coming out again. And if he performed there, but we cannot enter. So I thought, okay, we just film then show the space between the doors, and then the sound has to take over. So we're all the time thinking about, well, what can you show, what can you not show, what can you hear, what can you not hear, absences, presences, in all a myriad kinds of ways.
Yes, I'm old enough that I remember those Palm Court orchestras from London, so it was very evocative for me. Well, sorry, go ahead if you.
It's a beautiful song to me too.
Yes, yeah. Well, you're a wonderful interview subject, and you made a wonderful movie. I hope you have every success with it. I know that it's already in circulation, and I very much hope that a lot of people will see this movie not only for its subject matter, but for the way in which you chose to represent it, which I think is revolutionary and groundbreaking. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Mhm.